generation, degradation of the environment. And as we go into the tax bills, I want government to be mindful of the taxes, especially on gas, because people are now cutting trees and that kind of thing, the wetland. But we should be able to look at how to reduce taxes on special items like gas, as we need to be sensitive to the public. I want to welcome you once more and wish you a nice deliberation. Yes, Semakula.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, as a member of Parliament, I am much concerned about the chaos happening in Kenya. We have not yet had any plan by government in case there is persistent increase of chaos in Kenya, as it has become a norm that almost on every Monday, Kenyans have made it a day of rioting. Right Honorable Speaker, I wanted to hear that. Thank you, Right Honorable.
Government.
Madam Speaker and honorable colleagues.
Honorable members, whoever wants to give me information, please write a note and send it over. It is members in this house that gave me a cold. All the time they want to come and whisper. Please write a note and send it over. Send a note. Yes, government.
Madam Speaker, we are watching the situation in Kenya. We have confidence that they will resolve it. But on our side, we are also looking at how that will affect, especially the trade and the transit of goods. We have no indication that it has been affected grossly, but we hope that the situation will be resolved soon.
Honorable Minister, we also need to look at the fuel reserves. I'm not sure whether we have any fuel in the reserves.
On the fuel reserves, Madam Speaker, we shall cross-check with the Minister for Energy and then inform the country. And
can you report back tomorrow on what strategies, what plans you have for Ugandans, especially when we have problems with the neighbors?
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in your communication, Right Honorable Speaker, you talked about the rains that have really come. Right Honorable Speaker, our farmers, the Minister of Agriculture was on this floor. We all remember, honorable members and Right Honorable Speaker, and pledged that our farmers were going to get emergency seeds. And now the rainy season has come, and up to now, it is almost ending, and up to now, the farmers have not gotten anything. Right Honorable Speaker, I'd like to implore you to seek your guidance if it would not be okay for you to direct the Minister of Agriculture to come and give Parliament an update on the seeds for the farmers, because the rains are really ending.
Government Chief Whip, can we have a statement on the seeds? They used to give members of Parliament seeds and they would be transmitted to the voters. What could have happened? Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It is true, like Honorable Solomon has said, the districts need to be given seeds. We used to get some seeds as leaders of the people. on the basis that whenever Operation Wealth Creation and NADS used to give seeds, the leaders like the ones seated here used not to get. That is why Parliament of the 9th Parliament came up with an initiative called NADS/Parliament Food Security Arrangement. But Right Honorable Speaker, from the time we adopted parish development model, we dealt away with the seeds. It is like the saying, Madam Speaker, when they say, when you are moving to a new home, don't uproot the pumpkins from the whole home, because you may get stuck the other side and come this side. So we have got stuck, we uprooted the pumpkin, and we really need seeds. And for the food security interventions for the members of Parliament, for the 2 seasons, required only 4 billion. 2 billion for season A, 2 billion for season B. And for the districts, it needed just about 40 billion. What is the essence of government waiting for an area like Karamoja to starve? Then you come on the floor to request for 135 billion, and yet you could get 50 billion to make everybody in the country productive. Madam Speaker, I know your chair is a big one. We know there are people in this country who are bigoted, but you need to direct that seeds be provided for Ugandans, because the parish model, it has not taken off. And we cannot pretend that we are okay, and yet we are not okay. We need those seeds, Madam Speaker. The companies are very ready to supply. Government needs just commit itself the way they committed on the coffee seedlings. And the coffee seedlings were even more expensive, 70 billion. But this one, food security interventions by MPs, requires only 2 billion for 1 season. And for the districts, we need just about 40 billion. And we shall do away with the food insecurity. So that is what I
am aware that even the government chief whip was one of the beneficiaries of those seedlings, of the seeds. So can we hear from you, and we'll want the Minister of Agriculture to come to the house. We want the seeds. You are the ones who have taught us to depend on government. A dependence syndrome was brought by you people. So continue.
Right Honorable, as the Chief Whip comes to reassure us, what is more disturbing, in the last 2 seasons, Right Honorable, the Minister was here and he said that money in the parish development model was responsible for the seats and it was coming. Now, these are other 2 seasons, so these are 4, nothing has come. And we don't see the parish model.
Honorable members, what we need are seeds. First of all, the parish development model, the policies are not ready, everything is not ready. First, give us the seeds. The rest, you will sort it out. Government, I want a statement on the floor on the seeds.
Right Honorable Speaker, without any doubt in my mind, we all know that agriculture is the backbone of Uganda. And as already directed by you, I have no choice but to move the Ministry of Agriculture to come and present a statement on the floor of Parliament on a day and date, Right Honorable, is convenient to you. We undertake to ensure that the Minister is here to brief.
We expect the report tomorrow on the issue of the seeds.
Most obliged, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable members, government, you are aware that we are supposed to get the tax bills by 1st, and 1st will be a weekend, and that is pursuant to Section 13(3) of the Public Finance Management Act. So I am asking government tomorrow to lay the tax bills on table, and the budget estimates must be presented tomorrow without fail. You will also allow me to amend the order paper for us to have the supplementary budget addendum 4 laid on table. I will also amend the order paper to have a statement from a leader of opposition laying the alternative statement, which is going to do it now. You will lay it. Yes, Tinker.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, you talked about the protection of environment. In my constituency, Right Honorable Speaker, I have a big problem where families, around 4 families of chimpanzees have been living on some private forest. This forest, because of the population pressure, the owner has constantly used the land and forcing these chimpanzees to go in communities. We have complained to government to relocate these chimpanzees from a private land, and it has fallen on deaf ears. We have seen persistently these chimpanzees brutally kill children. In the last 4 years, they have killed 5 children. They don't eat, they killed, brutally killed. They tear. Those who are on social media, you might have seen a picture from Kagadi. It's a terrible picture. You can't focus on it even for 2 minutes. A child was buried yesterday after being attacked. It was being carried by a mother on her back. They went, because they know soft targets, they went for the mother and pulled off the child. Then they tore the entire face of the child. And the child died, was buried yesterday. The district, we are confused. The leaders are confused. For us, when they kill an animal like a chimpanzee, Wua and the government run to see what has happened. A human being has died. There is no government official that has gone on the ground to even see what is going on. I am raising this matter, Right Honorable Speaker, that government takes immediate action to solve this problem of chimpanzees in this place in Muhoro at Kahioro, Karuswiga. Or else they allow us to defend ourselves against the animals.
You have given your message. Don't do what is illegal. Very sorry for the loss that has happened. We condone with the families that have lost. Government, we need an immediate action because we are losing lives. Please.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. It is very bad. We condone with the family of the late child. And it is very bad. So sorry. We pray for her soul to rest in peace. And Right Honorable Speaker, I'm going to call the Ministry of Tourism immediately to go and relocate the animals so that they don't continue putting damage to our people. And secondly, I would have expected the district very fast, very urgently to have informed the government about such a problem which is in their district. But right now, since the MP has put it here, I'm going to call the Ministry of Tourism to immediately take up this matter urgently to relocate those animals.
Government is up to LOC1 system, and the LOC1 system must be aware. All you needed to do was to give a report to Prime Minister's office, and we are going to ask the Minister of Tourism to go on ground. The animals should be in a gazetted area, not people's farms. So those animals must be relocated with immediate effect. The family should be compensated for the loss. Leader of opposition? But you're laying a paper. First lay a paper.
No, there is a valid concern, Madam Speaker, in your communication, especially when you talked about the rains. The rains are usually a blessing, but when it comes to the heavy pounding rains for disaster-prone sub-region of Elgon, Madam Speaker, those high-risk hills like in Bududa, Rongo, even in Sebei, are full of numerous cracks. And the Bulambuli resettlement scheme is moving at a snail's pace. Up to now, they have only attempted to resettle 51 households from Bududa, Madam Speaker. So it may take ages. Hold on, please. I'll give you. It may take us ages. I would like to know from the ministry how prepared they are, a disaster preparedness ministry, or what plans they have to chart at least stopgap measures of temporarily resettling the people who are now actually seeking refuge in places of worship and in schools.
As I said before, the rains have started. They are going to start washing off people. And you know the history of Bududa, Bulambuli. So what plans do we have? As the Minister of Disaster, we need to have a statement on the floor. Government?
Right Honorable Speaker, the Ministry for Disaster will come up with a statement on the floor as far as the season we are in. Everybody knows what is happening and what might happen anytime. So they are going to come up with a statement here.
A statement on the plan.
On the plan of action. Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the people of Kasanda these days are in fear of the pang-wielding men, normally called the Vijambia men, who have so far hurt about 5 families. 2 people have died in the process, and 3 of them are in hospital. Right Honorable Speaker, we have informed the security agencies locally in Kasanda. But I would like to call upon government. The history of these pang-wielding men in this country, we have that history here. So it was in Masaka previously. Now it is in Kasanda. They target the old people. They target people who are in isolated places. Madam Speaker, my prayer is that government swiftly respond to the fear the people of Kasanda have. And in the meantime, government can guide the people what can be done to solve this problem where people, innocent people, old people, 70 years, they come, they murder that person. So, Madam Speaker, that's my prayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Government?
Right Honorable Speaker, I will request the Honorable MP to link up with the Minister of Security so that, because that is a very urgent matter. So we should not wait for the Minister to come here. I'm
Ajat,
requesting that,
can you link up with a member of parliament?
thank
And you
you.
link up with your minister.
Thank you. Much obliged, Right Honorable Speaker.
Alex? And we need a response on that issue.
Right Honorable Speaker, I seek your indulgence. Before, we had asked here on the floor the Minister of Disaster Preparedness to provide a comprehensive plan on how to avert these calamities within the country. And in your communication, when you refer to the immediate challenge of the rains, I still think that the study which was conducted by the scientists in the Elgon area, in the Rwenzori area, mapping out all the vulnerable places, that study is not being utilized. And the scientists are being frustrated because they do a lot of work, but the findings are not really being followed by government. So I would urge that what government tasks these scientists to do should really be put to use, and that comprehensive plan of averting calamities in the country must really be reinforced.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, this Parliament appropriates salaries. Actually, it is one of the keynotes that we make sure that all government servants receive their salaries. The prison forces recently been receiving their salaries. Science officers have been receiving full salaries of 4 million. This was increased from 2.2 million when the president directed that scientists are paid. Recently, or as of this month, prison officers that are under the science fields were cut salaries to 800,000 from 4 million. Now, these are people that have loans. These are people that have different engagements and have already committed their salaries over the last 8 months when they have been receiving these salaries. Unfortunately, they were not informed that their salaries are going to be cut, and the officers responsible are telling them it is because they are not in their respective fields. It is not their problem that they are not in their respective fields. It is the prison officers that it is prisons that employed them and is supposed to deploy them. My prayer, Right Honorable Speaker, is that finance actually pays the money, the difference of the money that was not paid for March, and also continues to pay their salaries all through as science prison officers until the deployments in the different fields are done, because they have already committed. It is a directive from the president, and this was not done to UPDF, it was not done to police, it was not done to any other, but strictly prisons. We don't want to see these people releasing murderers and the rest on the streets, or not taking care of their what? Of their jobs respectively. I beg to move.
Of course, they can't really release them. They are supposed to do their work, despite all the others. Government, finance, prisons has not got its money. Why?
Madam Speaker, I've just had the issue. I'm going to cross-check and get back.
You report back tomorrow. Next item.
Laying of papers. Addendum number 4 to supplementary expenditure schedule number 1 for the financial year 2022-2023.
Honorable members, Article 1562 of the Constitution, 2 and 3 of the Constitution, and Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act provides for a supplementary budget and requires legislative approval of the same. On 23rd December 2022, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development tabled the supplementary expenditure schedule number 1 for financial year 2022-2023. Since then, the minister has continued to table the addenda, and today we have addendum number 4. I am going to ask if we are still expecting another, so that we don't hurry. I now ask the minister, 1, to lay on table the addendum number 4. 2, tell us whether we should continue expecting other addendas.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay on table addendum number 4 to the supplementary schedule number 1 for financial year 2022-2023. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Please lay. Should we now process, or we are still expecting others?
Madam Speaker, this is work in progress. We can process as you never know. There can be other new developments.
Thank you. Next. I am referring it to the Committee of Budget for processing and report back to the House.
Alternative policy statements for the financial 2023-2024, pursuant to Rule 147 of the Rules of Procedure.
Honorable members, under Rule 147 of the Rules of Procedure, the Parliament Shadow Cabinet or Shadow Ministers are obliged to make sure they present the alternative statements, and the deadline is 29th day of March, and which is today. So I am requesting the Leader of Opposition to ensure that we have all the alternative policy statements.
Much obliged, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I will invite the Opposition Chief Whip to guide his team in laying the alternatives. But also remind the House that laying on the last day is not our culture, but because the Chief Whip did not whip his ministers to lay their MPSs on time. So when they are laggards, they make us look as though we are as shabby, but we normally keep time in laying our.
Honorable members, just a correction, the ministerial statements were laid on time. I received them, all of them, on 14th of March. It doesn't cause any harm for you to lay today. We know you.
Right Honorable Speaker, I prefer prudence to shabbiness, but because even when they were late, they were not available. That's the whole point.
That could be the issue.
They were not available. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me invite the Chief Whip to guide his the team.
And all the documents that are being laid will go to the respective sectoral committees.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. The subject matter is the laying of the alternative policy statements for the financial year 2023-2024. Under our Rules of Procedure, Rule 147, our shadow ministers are mandated to submit alternative policy statements to Parliament by 29th day of March every year. Pursuant to the above provision, we hereby forward copies of the following alternative policy statements. They are going to lay, of course, not as many as yours. We have a lean, mean cabinet of 21. ranging from justice and constitutional affairs, finance, planning and economic development, defense, veteran affairs sector, East African community affairs, gender, labor and social development, health, information and communication technology, internal affairs, defense, Kampala Capital City Authority, lands, housing and urban development, education and sports, energy and mineral development, agriculture, animal industry and fisheries, foreign affairs, office of the prime minister, office of the president, public service and local government, tourism, wildlife and antiquities, trade industries and cooperatives, water and environment, and lastly, works and transport. Madam Speaker,
Can we have the
I
documents?
now
please?
usher in my ministers.
You're
begin laying.
massaging the microphone. Can we have can we have the ministers lay? Honor, Okema, can you read the titles and then they come and lay?
Justice and Constitutional Affairs.
Right Honorable Speaker, I'm proceeding under Rule 147 of the Rules of Procedure to lay the alternative policy statement for financial year 2023-2024 for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. I beg to
Thank you. Please lay. Refer to Committee of Legal.
Finance, Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Committee of Finance.
Defense and Veteran Affairs.
Doctor is standing in for defense. Defense.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Next.
East African Community Affairs.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Ministry of East African Community Affairs, financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Refer to the Committee of East African Affairs.
Gender, Labor and Social Development.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for gender, labor and social development for the financial year 2023-2024.
Thank you, Honorable Hilderman. Refer to the Committee of Gender.
Health.
Right Honorable Speaker, I proceed under Rule 147 to lay the alternative ministerial policy statement of health sub-program for the financial year 2023-2024. And for the record, Right Honorable Speaker, ever since this country existed, it's the first time we are having a program to eliminate malaria at a cost of only
Honorable
470
Watua. Honorable Watua, can you lay?
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay this alternative ministerial
Referred to the Committee of Health.
Information Communication Technology.
ICT.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the alternative ministerial policy statement for information communications technology. I beg to lay.
For financial year 2023-2024.
Financial year 2023-2024.
Thank you, Honorable. Refer to the Committee of ICT.
Internal Affairs.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Ministry of Defense and Internal Affairs financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kampala Capital City Authority and the Ministry of Kampala Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs.
Kampala City. That is for the landlord.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I proceed under Rule 147 of our Rules of Procedure to lay the alternative policy statement for Kampala Capital City Authority and the Minister of Kampala Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Refer to Committee of Presidential Affairs.
Lands, Housing and Urban Development.
Lands.
Right Honorable Speaker, I move under Rule 147 of the Rules of Procedure. I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for lands, housing, and urban development for the year 2023-2024.
Thank you. Refer to the Committee of Lands.
Education and Sports.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the alternative ministerial policy statement on education and sports sector for financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Committee of Education.
Energy and Mineral Development.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for energy and mineral development for the financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you.
Agriculture.
Committee of Natural Resources.
Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fishery.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries for the financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Committee of Agriculture.
Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs.
Right Honorable Speaker, as Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Committee of Foreign Affairs.
Office of the Prime Minister.
All right, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Nyeko Derrick, Shadow Minister for Presidency and Security. I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for the Office of the Prime Minister 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Committee of Presidential.
Office of
Presidential
the
Affairs.
President.
I'm still laying the Office of the President. Yeah. Right Honorable Speaker, allow me lay the alternative policy statement for the Office of the Presidency.
I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for water and environment for financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Natural Resources.
Works and Transport.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the alternative policy statement for Works and Transport for the financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay.
Committee of Infrastructure. Next.
Motion for reconsideration of the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President in accordance with Article 91(3)(b) of the Constitution and Rule 142 of the Rules of Procedure.
Honorable members, last week on Wednesday, 22nd March 2023, this item came up for consideration. The sponsor of the bill, Honorable Shabe Patrick, moved a motion for reconsideration of the bill, and the chairperson presented a report of the committee on the floor. However, the House stood over the presentation of the report pending harmonization of the proposed amendments between the committee, Attorney General, and then the minority report writers, and harmonization has taken place. Could we get a report from first the Attorney General on the status of their harmonization before we continue?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. We met with the mover of the bill in the presence of the leader of opposition. We went over the clauses that were returned. We were able to harmonize and agree on most of them, save for about 2 or 3 that we shall have to haggle out on the floor of Parliament.
Thank you. Mover, is that the status?
Thank you very much. Yes, Right Honorable Speaker, we met with the Attorney General and the chairperson of the committee, and we agreed on many clauses, and we
Please
failed
speak to the
agree.
microphone. I've heard somebody behind there saying they are not hearing you.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I was just trying to be polite. Sometimes I am loud. Right Honorable Speaker, we met with the Attorney General, with the chairperson of the committee, and myself, and in the presence of the LOP, and we agreed on so many, as the President returned, we said we saw sense in many of the clauses that he returned, and we agreed to adjust them, but we also failed to agree on some. And Right Honorable Speaker, we said the House will help us determine those ones that we failed to agree on. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately, we were not part of the reconciliation team. We were not invited. But luckily, still the sections where we had issues with the majority report still stand. They didn't agree either way. So the minority report still stands.
So you're okay with us continuing?
No, I'm okay arguing my case on the floor, and members decide.
Are you okay with us continuing?
Yes,
Yes or
please.
no?
Yes, I agree with you to continue.
I now put a question that the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President in accordance to Article 91(3)(b) of the Constitution and Rule 143 of the Rules of Procedure be reconsidered by this House. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
The National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President, Bills Committee stage. Clause 1.
Chair.
Madam Chair, the committee proposes, and after the harmonization, committee proposes that clause 1C is amended by deleting paragraph 1 and the justification: the existing legal framework for mining sufficiently provides for local content.
Patrick.
I concede, Madam Chair.
AG.
On clause 1C.
I concede.
I put a question that clause 1 be amended as proposed. Those in favor stand the controller. Nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 1 as amended.
I put a question that clause 1 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor stand the controller. Nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Chair.
Clause 2 on interpretation. Clause 2 is amended by Roman 1, inserting immediately before the definition of contracting authority the following: authority means the public procurement and disposal of public assets authority. Roman 2, substituting the definition of contracting authority with the following: contracting authority means a ministry, department of government, authority, local government, statutory body, agents of government, or any other body established by government and mandated to carry out a public function in a public-private partnership. And the justification for this, Madam Chair, is to define authority to mean public procurement and disposal of public assets authority, and 2, to expand the definition of contracting authority to include local government, statutory bodies and agencies, since they all use public money.
Patrick.
Right, Honourable Speaker.
AG.
I concede, Right Honourable Speaker.
I put a question that clause 2 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2 as amended.
I put a question that clause 2 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Chair.
Clause 3, designation of Department for Procurement Policy and Management. Clause 3 is amended in A in subclause 2 by deleting paragraph F, paragraph H, paragraph K, and B by substituting subclause 3 for the following: the department shall have the power to institute local content inquiries and make recommendations. Justification: to avoid duplicity of roles, since the Office of the Auditor General is mandated to carry out audits and declare compliance under Article 163 of the Constitution and the National Audit Act 2008. 2, to avoid duplicity of roles, since the PPDA is mandated to develop guidelines for implementation of local content in Uganda. And 3, to avoid confusion with the powers of the Attorney General under Article 119 of the Constitution regarding termination of contracts.
Patrick.
Right, Honourable Speaker. I concede on the proposal to delete H and K. I also concede on the amendment in clause 3, but I have reservations on F. Madam Speaker, the PPDA can only deal with local content as far as procurement is concerned. The matters of developing guidelines on other issues of local content should be left with the ministry.
AG.
Right Honourable Speaker, we did not agree with the position of the mover on F because it is our belief that matters of procurement and matters of procurement cannot be separated from local content, and that those guidelines are already embedded, those powers to make those guidelines are already embedded within the PPDA law. So it would be duplicity for us to have guidelines made under the local content law and then guidelines made under the PPDA law. So it is our proposal that we delete F and leave those powers to make guidelines under the PPDA law.
Honorable Bahati.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the AG has said, most of the things that are covered under the local content are catered for under the PPDA Act. I don't know whether our colleague, the honorable member, can really accept that we delete clause F so that we move forward on this bill, because I don't know any other thing that you are talking about local content that is not catered for under the PPDA.
Right, Madam Chair.
Honorable members, Section 3 was returned by the President, and that it says, Section 3 establishes a local content department under the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to implement the provisions of the Act. The functions of the department include, among others, monitoring and audit compliance with the local content obligation under this Act. Audit and compliance issues should be left to the Office of the Auditor General, Internal Auditor General, or to the regulator. PPDA, the department should undertake the monitoring functions together with the other stakeholders. That is why it was returned. And when it was returned, F in the old law that was not assented to, F is to develop guidelines for the implementation of the local content in Uganda. That is what F is saying, which the Attorney General is saying that
it is already the authority of the PPDA and the Auditor General in this case to do monitoring, to develop guidelines for that purpose. We would be duplicating those roles if we provide for creation of guidelines under this local content law.
Solomon.
Right Honourable Speaker, why we are making this law, the local content law, is not because we have not been having it under other acts. But you remember the argument here when you were bringing the anti-homosexuality bill was that we were looking for a one-stop center. So we want a law, the local content bill law, which is going to cater for all this. I want to stand with the private member, Right Honourable Speaker, that we leave the powers to the minister, so that the minister will decide and say that at this point we are going. Pardon, I beg your pardon. Oh, thank you, Chair. So I suggest that we leave the powers to the minister to take a final decision, because when you take it to PPDA, already PPDA is handling basically procurement. And basically procurement. Now there are issues that will arise that do not fall in procurement. Then now how will that be handled? Because now the mandate of PPDA is to handle issues of procurement. So let us not mix the two. Let us separate and leave the powers to the minister.
Maybe I need to find out. I want to find out from the minister. Does it have any contradiction with any other law? Does it injure you for us to keep it here?
Madam Chair, when you create a two-way, how do I call it? I don't want to call it a two-way traffic, but you are giving mandate to two different organs to monitor and run the same thing. Because we all agree that we cannot separate matters of procurement from matters of local content. So if we create a second organ, we are likely to cause confusion. But if it is the finding of the committee...
Does it injure you in any way to have two laws and you'll choose which law to use in a particular case?
Right Honourable Speaker, the ideal thing to do would be that if you find a weakness in the PPDA law, then we can amend the PPDA law and strengthen it, other than create a parallel one that is likely to create conflict.
So what is your position?
My position is that this F should be deleted.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Right, Madam Chair.
Let's first get a clarification from Dr. Peya.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Then you come.
I would like a clarification from you if it is true that procurement is local content. In my view, reading this law, it has a more comprehensive issues around local content where procurement is just one part, a component of it. So I want us to clarify on that so that we don't reduce this law to procurement. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The aspect of local content that procurement is handling through PPDA is largely to do with when an international firm undertakes works, and that international firm is required to at least give 30% of those works to a local company. So it is largely in that aspect that the local content from PPDA is coming out. Now, what we are trying to drive through clause F, clause 3F, is something that is actually bigger than what procurement is handling. So I support that we hold it in there. Thank you very much.
Yes, Patrick.
Madam Chair, like Dr. Peya has tried to explain, local content, although much of the bill is focusing on procurement, but it has other aspects where we will need guidelines. And the PPDA will not be in position to develop guidelines on matters of succession plans, on matters to do with goods and services. PPDA can only deal with local content in terms of procurement. So we can't give that responsibility to that specific agency. We leave it to the minister under the department. The minister will be better positioned to develop guidelines that cut across all other aspects of local content. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Chair. And I think the Attorney General understands me better now.
Actually, your argument requires us to amend the PPDA Act to remove that power. Not so.
Madam Chair, when you look at procurement in its sense, procurement is a competitive policy that whoever wins a contract, it's competition. We are coming up with this law as an affirmative action law because competition is throwing our people out. So this is affirmative action, and matters of affirmative action should be left here under local content. It can't do their opposites with procurement.
Sarah.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, there is a contradiction, because the President later requested that we leave these matters of local content on public
institutions. And when you read the bill, the object of the bill is really to impose local content obligations on persons using public money. And of course, the other was Uganda's natural resources, which now is being removed because it concerns the mining and so on, where the members have already agreed. So, Right Honorable Speaker, for me, because of that contradiction, unless we are not agreeing with what the President has said, so I want to agree that there is no harm, Right Honorable Speaker, for clarity in maintaining this here. It has no harm. You can amend the PPDA Act. No, you can amend the PPDA Act because that is where public resources are utilized for procurement. So that local content is taken care of by the public institutions. But there is no harm also in leaving that particular clause here, because to me, it is only for emphasis.
AG.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
AG, I'm still asking you, does it injure you in any way?
Madam,
if we have two laws, we have the anti-homosexuality in the penal code, we have the law now. So what's wrong with having? You will choose a law to use.
Madam Chair, the President never required that. The President's concern was on having the audit function under the department. When you read
the monitoring and compliance.
Yes, now it is Auditor General who is
Can
bringing
we hear
into
from
the
AG?
F.
Madam Chair, it does not injure me as a person, but when it comes to lawmaking,
by the way, you're not here as a person, you are here as the government.
Thank you, much obliged, Right Honorable Speaker. My worry is creating an ambiguity. My worry is having two laws providing for the same thing. My worry is requiring whoever is enforcing the laws to look at the PPDA law and then have to look at the local content law. So my guidance is that we delete F, so that we do not create a repetitive ambiguity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alternatively, I suggest that we amend the wording. We say develop guidelines for implementation of local content in Uganda, except those that are already covered under the PPDA Act. I think that would also resolve the issue.
Madam Chair, the PPDA is one of the entities that are implementing local content. It's not the only entity. And once we understand that it's not the only entity, then we leave that to the minister who is above all these other entities. AG.
Yeah, but Honorable Mover, the argument is that we would not want to duplicate what already PPDA is doing. So we are saying what PPDA is already, the regulations under the PPDA Act can be excluded from this act, and we move with the section.
Madam Chair, I concede.
Thank you, AG. I put a question that Clause 3 be amended as proposed by Honorable Oshabe Patrick. And the committee, those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 3 as amended.
I put a question that Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Clause 5. Chair. Clause 4. Clause 4.
Madam.
Clause 4.
Madam Chair, we did not agree on Clause 4. There were two entrenched positions on that. But the committee, the position of the minority, position of the mover, which is also the position of the minority report,
Chair, much as you did not agree, when it is a returned bill, you must report on each clause which has been returned. You don't. What were your? What is your position?
The position of the committee is that we maintain
Even
it
if
as
the position of the committee is to maintain, you must report.
okay. The position of the committee is that we maintain, but
What
we
are you maintaining? Okay.
That we maintain Uganda
You read
versus
what you're maintaining.
Uganda versus East Africa. But we are, after persuasion, we are conceding to the position of the minority report.
Madam
Honorable Chair, never delegate your powers to a minority holder. You're supposed to read and the minority person will concede. What is your position as the chair? What is the position of the committee?
Madam Chair, can I? Madam Chair, Clause 4 proposes to give priority of Ugandan goods or to Ugandan goods over East African goods. And we are saying our position is that one, we are bound by the East African Community Protocol. We cannot give priority to Ugandan goods, but would rather give priority to East African goods because that's what the law requires of us. So we are bound by the East African Community Protocol and we are bound by the East African Monetary Union.
Enos.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, right.
First of all, let me read what Section 4 says. As returned by the President, Section 4 gives preferential treatment to Ugandan goods, works and services. This contradicts the East African Community Protocol on free movement of goods and services and the East African Monetary Union. The section should be amended to read East African goods, works and services instead of Uganda. You have a protocol that you've signed that you're bound to. You have a treaty you're bound to as a community. Yes, Enos?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not. Our position as a minority, we agreed with the President's position that considering our commitment to the East African Treaty, Article 76, and at the same time the Monetary Union Protocol that we signed as a community, we say we ask that we maintain. Clause 4 is amended by substituting the words Uganda and Ugandan to the word East African Community respectively. This is to justify the provision into compliance with the East African Community Treaty and Protocol, which I had already said. But at the same time, there are two aspects here. There is the commitment, but at the same time, there is the political message we've been taking out there. Uganda, starting from the President, we have been at the forefront of advocating for the integration of the community. All the members of Parliament on foreign committees, the PAP, CPA, even IPU, when we're out in these conferences, we have been advocating for a borderless Africa, free movement of goods and services. Then Uganda cannot be the one to put restrictive laws to restrict movement of goods and services. So that's why we insist that we maintain, we change to East African Community instead of Ugandan goods.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the amendment as proposed by the minority is the right one, to replace the word Uganda with the East African goods. Yes.
Patrick. Honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
When you're making a law, don't put personal feelings. don't put personal feelings. Uganda will always remain Uganda, but you entered into a treaty. You have a protocol that you've signed, East African Treaty, in terms of movements of goods, the monetary. So if you're making the law, don't make the law that is going and bounce it back again. And you must be flexible. I know Patrick has
Madam Chair, thank you. First of all, AG knows that this Parliament cannot make a law to legislate for the rest of East African communities. That one AG knows. We can't sit here and we say this law will be applicable to all East African countries. If that is needed, it has to go to the IALA. It is only IALA that can do that. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, the purpose of this law is an affirmative action law for the people of Uganda. In Article 31, Right Honorable Chair, we have provided that where goods of Uganda, when you're using public money, and the goods, Ugandan goods are not available, the second option should be East African countries. It is in 31. So we have provided for East African community in 31. Thirdly, Right Honorable Chair, whether using a law, whether using policies, all East African countries are doing their best to ensure that their countries, their companies, and their people thrive. Everyone is doing whatever they can, whether using a law, whether using policies. If the effort was here, Right Honorable Speaker, and our country is trying to prioritize Ugandans, to favor them, there would be no necessity for me to come up with a law. But because they are ignored, they are left to the periphery. This is why I come up with this what? This law. We cannot sit here, Right Honorable Speaker, and say it will be applicable to all East African countries. Lastly, Chair.
Does this Parliament have powers to domesticate the law that has been made in the East African community?
Yes, Right Honorable Chair. And lastly, Chair, what I wanted to submit last. When you look at the protocol, I want anybody who pick on the East African protocol, because that's where I began from. There is no agreement on matters of security. Yes. Every country handles its security the way they want. There is no agreement on matters of health. Every country handles its health the way they want. There is no agreement on matters of procurement. Yes. Anybody else, you can bring it here and say there is an agreement, East African protocol on procurement. Yes. There we will begin. What you're talking about, the general movement of goods and services, that's not my space. That's a space for trade. And I'm not targeting the general trade. I am targeting taxpayers' money. When we are using taxpayers' money, we must prioritize the people of Uganda and the goods made in Uganda.
Attorney General.
Madam Chair, I'm glad the Honorable Samba said we are using taxpayers' money. But I also want Honorable Samba to admit that we are bound by the protocols that we sign. I also want Honorable Samba to admit that the East African Community Protocol takes precedence over the laws we make. I want Honorable Samba to admit that the East African Community Protocol does not allow us to have our goods.
We have the market protocols, we have the monetary, we have them. Let's
it is
not
the
pretend
common
like
market protocol.
The common market.
It does not allow us to have our local goods given priority over goods in the East African community. Now, I do understand that other countries may have violated that, okay, by imposing what they call non-tariff barriers. But we do not have to do that in a law, by embedding it in a law that now we are going to create our own domestic law in order to violate the East African Community Protocol. that would be illegal and it will be challenged in the East African court.
Lob, you put your case. You have put your case. Sit. Lob.
Right Honourable Speaker, we had occasion to converse over the subject matter, including educating ourselves on what is binding to us as a nation. Of course, I understand the honourable member is very Ugandan and has Uganda at heart. I can understand his background, but as a student of international law, I do understand what this says for us. And I know for a fact that if we pass this, it will be challenged in the East African court and we'll lose it. If it's not challenged, it will obtain and people will partake of benefit. But broadly speaking, the Land Attorney General has a point. What I had advised the Honorable Land Attorney General is probably to find within the drafting of this bill or a new sub-clause to accommodate a requirement that where need be, priority will be given to Ugandan entities. And that will calm the nerves of this, the Ugandan parliament to say that probably we have given an option to Uganda to make sure that would not legislate blindly. The realities are with us. And I would like to ask you, Right Honourable Chair, to give the honourable member the last moment to either make further clarification or to make a middle line, a concession with further clarification. It's good to, you see, even when we go to court, a judge will ask you to make your last pleas as a way of mitigation. So the honourable member should be given an opportunity to mitigate his case.
Thank you. I love your diplomacy. What you're talking about, the preference on Uganda is on section 31, clause 31, that is provided for. I'm going to give you, let me hear from Wilson.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I have listened to passionate presentation from the Honourable Samba or Shabe. His definition of Ugandan products, and I critically understand the sentiment behind Ugandan products. But I wanted him to clarify on this. We are moving faster and progressively towards federation. And the Honorable Patrick Nsamba could tomorrow invest in Tanzania and produce goods, and he wants the same goods to be bought here in Uganda. Why would he use the law to restrict his business deals? So what is called Ugandan goods is not necessarily what is produced in Uganda. It could be produced by Ugandans who are investors in Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, or Rwanda. I also know, Right Honourable Speaker, that where we have reached...
Honourable members, let's move.
Thank you.
Can I hear from Trade? Then the Honourable Shabe. Honourable Shabe, don't mind, I'm going to put a question.
Madam Chair, we spend a lot of time as a government negotiating these agreements, the East African Community agreements, protocols. We have now actually, soon, Madam Chair and honourable colleagues, will be moving from Bubu to Baba, because we have now signed.
What is
Buy
Baba?
Africa, Buy
What is-
Africa, Build Africa.
Buy Africa, build Africa.
Because we have now secured the market for all the 54
And
countries.
the Honourable Shabe is a member of Pan-African Parliament.
And the member of Pan-African. So taking it to the level of goods, I think Honorable Shabe would be too much. I think if we can say entities as Rob has suggested, that will be a very good middle ground. But let us not legislate on anything that will affect the implementation of these markets. Thank you.
Honourable members, when you look at 31, it says the goods or services is not manufactured or produced in Uganda or is not locally or readily available, that the preference will be in the goods of Uganda. Honorable Shabe Patrick of Kasanda.
Sir, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it is not true, and no one will take us to court. Why, Madam Chair?
We are now speculating.
Madam Chair,
even Honorable Fox is taking us to court on anti-homosexuality.
Madam Chair, we already, every one of these East African countries is running a campaign. Uganda is running a campaign by Uganda, Build Uganda. It is by government and it is by Ministry of Trade. Who has ever taken Uganda to court? Who? Rwanda is running by Uganda, Build Rwanda.
Honorable Shabe, I want to ask you one thing. A very simple one. Do you want your bill to pass or not? We've spent a lot of time. It started from 9th. From 9th Parliament. It is your achievement that this bill this time round passes. I want to refer you to section 31. Priority of goods or services for member states of East African Community. And it answers that question, that the priority will always be from the member state. It covers the other.
Madam Chair, there is no purpose for me to come here with a purpose to cure a mischief. And I am defeated here for people who just want East African Community. It is,
by the way, the law is not about defeating. We are not about a winner or the...
Madam Chair, the minister has been here claiming that people will take us to court on local content. But we have local content in Mining Act. We have local content in the Petroleum Act. We have Kenya has local content in the Infrastructure Act. Every country has local content, legislated. Honorable members, Right Honorable Chair, anybody who wants to defeat this law will just make it for East Africa. I'll have no purpose in going forward with this law. It makes no meaning for me to sit here. I want to give chance to Ugandans. And today you tell me to look for Congo, to look for everyone. Then the purpose of the law is defeated.
Honorable members, in the circumstance, you want to give information?
Maybe it can help.
Yes, Presidential Affairs.
Since we are now East Africa, I would like you to agree and do, these people when it comes to do for any Uganda product, they will use their own mandate, like we are doing with the Bombardier. Bombardier has got also the Kenya Airways, but I want to tell you that any ministry, anyway, even Parliament, you must, unless if there is no Uganda Airlines for you to get a ticket to use another airline. So it can be done.
Honorable members,
and it will not be
defeated
anywhere.
Thank you, honorable members. I am going to put a question. And I am putting a question on the amendment of the minority report, that is of Enos. And I want you to be mindful that this is provided for under section 31, as said by the LOP. And LOP, thank you so much for being very objective. I put a question that clause 4 be amended as proposed by the minority report. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 4 as amended.
I put a question that clause 4 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Clause 5. And Chairman, I want you to be a responsible chairman. Don't leave a clause that has been returned unattended to. Once something is returned, you must look at it. You as a chair, you cannot just keep quiet. Don't put the house into starting to do your work.
Madam Chair.
Clause 5.
Okay.
Clause 5.
Clause 5. Rejection of Ugandan goods and services during procurement. Clause 5 is amended. A. By substituting Clause 2 for the following. 2. Where the goods locally manufactured in Uganda or service provided by a Ugandan citizen or company does not meet the required quality, quantity, or timeline for delivery or completion, the accounting officer of the local entity may, in writing, authorize procurement of the good or service elsewhere. B. By substituting for subclause 4 the following. 4. The local content entity shall keep a record of the acquisition under subsection 2 and file a monthly report with the department stating A. The nature of the good or service procured or contracted. B. Availability of similar goods or services in Uganda. C. The purpose for which the good or service was required. D. The minimum quality, quantity, and timeline for delivery that was required by the local content entity. E. The market price for the good or service. F. The market price for similar goods or services. And G. Any other information the minister may prescribe by regulation. And C. By inserting immediately after subclause 5 the following. 6. An accounting officer shall be liable for breach of this section. Justification. To allow for the procurement of goods or services without any delays or inefficiencies. 2. To guide the local content entities on the parameters they can use once they have rejected Ugandan goods or services. 3. To create liability for the accounting officers.
AJ?
I concede.
Patrick?
Madam Chair, I came here to bring a law to support the people of Uganda. And that was my major purpose. Now I don't know how to proceed. If the House thinks that we shall prioritize all East African countries, I don't know. I have seen so many times when Ugandan goods are being chased east, west, and north. Now I really don't know how to proceed, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 5 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 5 as amended.
I put a question that clause 5 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 7.
7. 6. Clause 6.
Madam Chair, in our report we are reporting on all clauses, and clause 6 is regarding reservation of goods or services to be exclusively procured from Uganda. Now on that one, the President states that clause 6 violates Article 13 of the East African Customs Union, and this is very much similar to, okay, it's consequential to clause 4. The committee recommends that the word Uganda is maintained in the Act, And this.
If it is consequential, the word East Africa.
Okay. Okay, consequential to clause 4, we agree with the president that this is revised to East Africa.
Madam Chair, for purposes of clarity, clause 6 states that a reservation of goods or services to be exclusively procured from Uganda. Now, our contention is that that alone creates a contradiction, puts us at loggerheads with the provisions of the East African Protocol. So, in respect of that, we propose that Uganda, the word Uganda, be replaced with the word East Africa, just as a consequence of what we've done in clause 4. I beg to submit.
Clause 6. I put a question that clause 6 be amended as proposed by the minority report. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 6 as amended.
Clause 6 as amended. I put a question that clause 6 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay.
Procedure, Chair.
The ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Clause 7.
Madam Chair, in clause 7 is about prevalence of goods or services readily available on Ugandan market. Clause 7 is amended. Clause 7 is amended by A, substituting for 1 the following. Subject to this act, a local content entity shall give preference to goods and services that are readily available on the Ugandan market and shall exclusively grant contracts for procuring such goods or services to Ugandan entities. B, by deleting sub-clauses 2 and 3. Justification for this, to provide for use of goods or services that are readily available in the Ugandan market, even if they are not locally manufactured.
Dr. Penn.
Thank you, Right Honorable Chair. I would like to know whether this local content bill is changing to East African local content bill. Because the leader of opposition gave us a very clear position that instead of considering our goods as local for Ugandan goods, we could then talk about an entity. Are we proceeding right if Attorney General is telling us to substitute now Uganda with East Africa? Is it possible that we can get a better way of putting this law so that we own it as a local content
I wish
law?
you could understand what law was talking about in section 4, clause 4. That read clause 4 together with 31. Do you have the law with you there? Read 4 together with 31. Yes, AG.
Madam Chair, permit me make some clarification. When the East African Community Protocol was entered, it was not envisaged or foreseen that we would have a law on local content. And we bound ourselves by saying we will not have a law that gives exclusivity to local goods over East African goods. Now, as far as we stand, we are bound by that protocol because it stands. Okay? Now, for us to have a law locally in Uganda that gives exclusivity to goods and services in East Africa over those in East Africa, it is bound to be challenged.
Clarification.
That is what I can say.
Clarification.
Enos.
just going to read the law as it is so that members can debate. Article 76 says there shall be established a common market among the partner states. Within the common market and subject to the protocol provided for in paragraph 4 of the article, there shall be free movement of labor, goods, services, capital, and the right of establishment. The establishment of the common market shall be progressive and in accordance with the schedules approved. Thereafter, we signed a common market protocol. Section 6 actually is very clear about free movement of goods and services, and specifically commits not to to restrict trade between partner states. By now, listen, let me finish.
Why don't you let the member finish?
The bill we are discussing has so many sections, but specifically where we are dealing with East Africa, where we are moving Uganda for East Africa, it's only section 4 and section 6. Section 31 stays as the mover wants. It gives priority to Ugandan goods and thereafter to East African and gradually to the world market. So either way, under section 31, we are protecting the Ugandan market. But section 4 and 6, if we maintain them in the current format, we are restricting trade.
We have passed this 4 and 6. We are on 7.
Okay. Okay, I'm just giving information to that effect. But listen, anything, if we had passed 4 and 6 in the manner that the mover wanted, would have restricted trade, which is against the treaty, which is against the protocol. Okay, give me information.
Let's look at clause 7. AG, what is your position on 7?
Madam Chair, we harmonized the position on clause 7, and as presented by the committee chair, I concede.
Chair, that is the position?
Madam Chair, that's the harmonized position that I've presented. On 7, I've presented amendments on 7. Right. Should I do it again? Madam Chair, Madam Chair, 7 is about preference of goods or services readily available on Ugandan market. Clause 7 is amended by A, substituting for sub-clause 1 the following. Subject to this act, a local content entity shall give preference to goods and services that are readily available on the Ugandan market and shall exclusively grant contracts for procuring.
Solomon, you're not in the market. Sit down.
I repeat. Subject to this act, a local content entity shall give preference to goods and services that are readily available on the Ugandan market and shall exclusively grant contracts for procuring such goods or services to Ugandan entities. B, by deleting sub-clauses 2 and sub-clause 3. Justification. To provide for use of goods or services that are readily available in the Ugandan market, even if they are not locally manufactured.
Is that the position you agreed upon?
Yes, Right Honourable Speaker, and I concede.
I put a question that clause 7 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 7 as amended.
I put a question that clause 7 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it. 8.
Clause 9.
Clause 9.
Clause 9 is about reservation of contracts for public works. The President is suggesting the use of the word shall.
Yes.
Instead of the President is suggesting that instead of using the word shall, we use the word may. And the committee...
Section 9 on reservation of contracts for public goods.
Correct.
It provides that the minister shall, in consultation with the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, and by notice in this Gazette, reserve certain contracts for public works to be exhaustively granted to Ugandan citizens and companies. The word shall be replaced may. That is the amendment.
And Madam Chair, the committee agrees with the President's proposal that the word shall is changed to may.
AG.
I concede.
I put a question that clause 9 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have
Clause
it.
9 as amended.
I put a question that clause 9 be as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 10.
Not 11. Clause 10. Clause 10 on prohibition and subcontracting. The provision is ambiguous and should be revisited. It should be amended to read prohibition and subcontracting by a subcontractor. It should be noted that a firm that has subcontracted remains liable for the subcontracted works or services. This is likely to raise quality assurance issues. That is the reason that the President put.
And the position of the committee, Madam Chair, on this is that the position that it's maintained as it is in the Act.
What is it in the Act? Lob.
Right Honorable, there was no harmonization on this, and I left it to the discretion of my member to make his case on 10.
As your member now accepted that is part of the proceedings?
He is part. He has not left the House.
Because you can't throw it on somebody's face like you don't want to do anything.
Madam Chair, I was lost.
Can we look at clause 10?
I was lost along the way, Madam Chair, and I'm finding my ground now. And
Clause
my ground...
10? What is your position on clause 10?
Madam Chair, I think it's a misunderstanding on 10. Whereas we want these Ugandans... Madam Chair, whereas we are struggling and trying our best to ensure that these Ugandans benefit through affirmative action, we are aware that many of them can abuse the process. So clause 10 comes in to ensure that whereas we are creating a law for you, you must not subcontract the works given to you under affirmative action. It is not that you deserved, but because of affirmative action, we are creating, do not subcontract the works that have been given you under this. There also another leg, Right Honorable Chair, under that clause, which I think they fail to understand our purpose in. They proposed it in the bill because it is intended to cure a mischief where Ugandans will become just middlemen, yet we want them to build capacity.
First, look at the head note.
Madam Chair.
Look at the head note.
Yes, Madam Chair. The head note is about subcontracting.
I don't have a problem leaving it there, but I'm saying also look at the head note.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Can you improve on the head note?
No, Madam Chair, because why we can't take the President's, but the President
is interested in saying, don't subcontract subcontracted work. But that section is not only on subcontracted work. It is also a situation where Ugandan gets a full contract, where he is not a subcontractor, is a contractor himself. That is the other leg of it.
AJ.
Madam Chair, our proposal is that we improve on the head note. Instead of saying prohibition of subcontracting, because if you say prohibition of subcontracting outrightly, it means whichever individual gets whichever contract is outrightly prohibited from subcontracting. And we all know that nobody, not even a very well-off company, is 100% self-contained or self-sufficient. So at some point, there are some aspects of the contract that you would want subcontract. So I would propose that we improve on the head note instead of calling it prohibition of subcontracting. In this case, we are referring, yes.
You're done? Lob?
Right Honourable Chair, I was looking at the gist of the clause, and my essence is that it was an attempt to limit the extent of third parties in the chain of the contract. And if the honourable mover here would appreciate what this would amount to, and I will agree with him that maybe it's a question of nomenclature, and we improve on the framing of the clause, because I get to see that the essence is the same.
Yes.
And unless you have not, we have not harmonized on what you want to deliver. What you want to deliver is what the clause needs to deliver is what you are saying, that you want this Ugandan contractor to build capacity, and therefore it should not be subcontracting again. So that value chain limits the extent of subcontracting, which dilutes the essence of the contract. I don't know whether we are on the same page that far. Yes.
Now, give me the amendment. Oh, you want? Give me the amendment. The legal amendment. Give me the legal amendment.
Madam Chair, the President wants us to change the head note. When you look into the President's comment, he's saying change the way it is.
Oh, what we do? When you look at clause 9, reservation of contracts for public works. Honorable Shabe, clause 9. Reservation of contracts for public works. A minister shall, in consultation with the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, and by notice of a gazette, reserve certain contracts for public works to be exclusively granted to Ugandan citizens and companies. Doesn't it cure your issue? And if it doesn't, what we do? Let's turn over that, go to the next clause.
Yeah.
As you think over it, let's turn over it.
Let me explain, Madam Chair. This one is what takes us to 10, Madam Chair. Because this one is saying there are some specific contracts that will be given to Ugandan companies under affirmative action fully. Now, once we change the head note in 10 and concentrate on only subcontracting only, that implies that we will have cured one part on subcontracting. We will not have cured the benefit, the companies that get contracts under 9.
AG, part 4. The heading of part 4 is subcontracting of contracts and public works. Doesn't it help?
Madam Chair, maybe we bring clause 9 under part 4.
Under what?
Under part 4, in order to cater for his interest.
Clause 9 or
because clause 9 leads us to 10. We bring.
We finished with 4.
No, for
I mean 9.
Yeah, for purposes of.
Don't take me back. Let's go to 11. Let's go to 11.
Clause 11.
We've stood over the 10 as you reconcile it, the two of you reconcile.
Madam Chair, clause 11 is about requirement to subcontract public works contracts or activities. Clause 11 is amended by A, substituting for subclause 1 the following. Every contract for public works granted to an individual or entity other than a Ugandan company or citizen shall, subject to fulfilling the eligibility requirement under Section 13, contain a requirement for the individual or entity to subcontract a percentage of the contracted works in the manner prescribed by the Minister by regulation to a Ugandan company or citizen. B, by deleting subclause 3. And the justification for this, Madam Chair, is provided for the regulations to prescribe the percentages of the works to be subcontracted based on the value, complexity, and the size of the works to be performed.
Patrick?
Madam Chair, the challenge with this amendment is that you're leaving the discretion to the minister to determine for you how much local content you're likely to get. Now, the minister can come up and say, I got 1%. Will a country have benefited from this? I propose that this House determines a percentage and say this percentage for any contract that goes on. We have provided in this law to unbundle as much as possible to create life easy for Ugandans. If you're doing a complex project, unbundle it so that at least 40% of that contract is given to local companies here. They are the taxpayers.
Honorable Shavi.
So, yes.
The letter which returned has a percentage. Why is the committee quiet on the percentage? Section 11(1) provides that every contract for public works granted to an individual or an entity other than the Ugandan company or any other citizen shall be subject to fulfilling the eligibility requirements under Section 13, containing the requirement of such an individual or an entity to subcontract to at least 40% of the subcontracted works to a Ugandan company. 40% across the board may be feasible for every works contracted. This should be transferred to the regulations and a provision for exceptions be incorporated. That is the comment on the returned.
Madam Chair, I think you're missing a statement.
We need to have a percentage. We need to have a percentage.
Thank you very much, Madam
So that a minister will not just say, let's give 1%. Yes.
Madam Chair, we are not saying we should not have a percentage. Our argument is that the percentage should not be embedded here. We should give the minister, we should be in the regulations.
That will be
so
too
that
much.
the minister is given leeway.
No,
some
that will
form
be,
of flexibility.
That will be too much for a minister.
Permit me make my case, Right Honourable Speaker. when we were discussing this, I gave an example that if a company is going to construct a road from Kampala to Jinja, assuming it is a Chinese company, and they have all the equipment, the only thing they do not have is the maram. So, in respect of that, the minister can authorize the percentage that is supposed to be covered by the maram to be given to a local person. So my proposal is that we are going to be too strict and make it literally unpracticable if we put this percentage in here. What if we fail to find a local person that is able to provide this percentage? Madam Chair, when I talked, Madam Chair, please protect me. When I said we might fail to find a local entity to provide this percentage, Honorable Nsamba, the mover's proposal was that we unbundle, as in we give several companies these subcontracts in order to get the 40%. Madam Chair, the problem with unbundling or using more than 2 companies is that they do not all operate at the same pace. Assuming you intend to install wires, your company is to your contract is to install wires, and you have bought them and you are ready to do electricals, but the structure is not put in place. What do you do? Because the contract has not been given to you.
Can I hear from the minister responsible? The minister responsible is this time around is finance.
Madam Chair, this law is intended to help, to favor our Ugandans. Me, I see no harm of determining a percentage, minimum percentage, within which.
What is your suggestion on minimum percentage?
The minimum can be anything between 20 and 40. Yes.
What is your minimum? Give us one figure.
We could take 30%.
30%. 30%, yes. It doesn't cause any harm. Don't be seen that you don't concede.
I concede.
Honorable Chair, there is Honorable Chair. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair.
I put a question that clause 11 be amended as proposed and amended by the Attorney General with by the Attorney General. Those in favor say, and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 11 as amended.
I put a question that clause 11 be amended as stands part of the bill. Those in favor say, and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 12.
Clause 12.
Clause 12 is about liability between the 2 clauses. We actually find that they complement each other, and therefore it's the opinion of the committee that clause 12 regarding the liability for subcontractor works be maintained as in the Act. The committee further recommends that if Parliament finds feasible, the clauses the 2 clauses can be merged.
Patrick?
Madam Chair, I agree with the committee proposal on grounds that, Madam Chair, 12 and 24, they are intended to cushion both the main contractor and the subcontractor. 12 cushions the subcontractor, 24 says that use the subcontractor. You must be compliant. And as simple as that, they are not contradicting in any way.
AG?
I concede.
I put a question that clause 12 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say, and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause
13.
Clause 13.
Madam Chair, Clause 13 is about eligibility of Ugandan entity to be subcontractor. Clause 13 is amended in subclause F by substituting for the words Ministry or the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority. So Clause 13 is amended in subclause F by substituting for the words Ministry or the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, the words Authority under the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority Act. And the justification, this is a consequential amendment to Clause 25.
Patrick?
I concede, Madam Chair.
AJ?
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that Clause 13 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 13 as amended.
I put a question that Clause 13 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it. Clause 25. 21.
Clause 21.
And 22.
Madam Chair, Clause 21 and 22, 2, regarding the procurement planning and evaluation of local content. Clause 22, 2 seemingly provides for the department to approve all local contracts from all procurement and disposal entities, PDE, in the country. The President notes that the contents under these two provisions do not match the subtitles, and in some cases they are confusing. He recommends that these provisions should be cross-referenced to the PPDA Act and regulations on procurement planning and evaluation. The committee observes that there is no contradiction between the head notes and the provisions. The two provisions are clearly providing for different things, and there is no need to cross-reference with the PPDA Act. The clauses provide guidance on how the local content aspect can be included in the plans for the procurement and how they are to be evaluated for purposes of checking for responsiveness with the local content laws. Therefore, the committee recommends that the clauses are maintained in the Act since there is no apparent contradiction.
AJ?
Our position is that the two clauses contradict the PPDA Act and would rather delete them and then amend the PPDA Act to fill the gap.
Madam Chair, as earlier explained, procurement laws are about competition. And AG, the earlier you appreciate that, the better. Matters of local content are matters that is a disorganization by the way to the procurement process. So we have provided, in 21 we are providing procurement planning.
Just a minute. Let's hear from the line minister.
Madam Chair, there is something cropping up where I know the rules of procedure have over the years been changing. But those days in the 10th Parliament when I was still the chair and when I handled the local content bill and other bills, I know when the President returns a bill, there is a way we handle it. But from what I'm seeing, as if we are beginning to amend what the President has proposed in the returned bill, I need to be guided whether this is the correct procedure of handling the returned bill. Thank you.
That is what is supposed to be. on a reconsideration. Tackle the concerns that have been raised.
Madam Chair, with your guidance, then the Attorney General's position should be supported because the committee is trying to amend what the President has proposed, which is not.
Oshabe, help us on this.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, currently, whereas in the PPDA Act 203, Madam Chair, protect me from the Honorable Minister. Madam Chair, whereas the PPDA Act 203 provided for reservations and support to the people of Uganda, they failed to implement it. Because what they are doing, they implement local content at the tail end of the procurement process. And by the time they consider matters of local content, many Ugandans have been excluded already. So in 21, Madam Chair, we are saying every procurement entity should plan for local content at the stage of advertising adverts, at the stage of bidding, you know, at every, yes.
I want to read for you what the President's comment was on 21. On procurement planning and evaluation of local content in bids, the contents under these two provisions do not match the subtitles and in some cases confusing. These provisions should be cross-referenced to the PPDA Act and regulations on procurement planning and evaluation. That is on 21. On 22, provides for the Department of Local Content, which will have powers, among others, to approve all local contracts from the procurement and disposal entities, PDEs, in the country. The provision is in conflict with the Article 119 of the Constitution that mandates Attorney General to give his opinion, stroke advice in respect to all contracts, agreements, treaties, conventions, or any documents to which the government is a party to. That is 22.2. That's what we are looking at. Yes.
Madam Chair and honorable members, when you look at 21, like I've been explaining, we are requiring procurement entities, Madam Speaker, to clarify what are their interests in terms of local content in 21.1 and 2. At that stage of bidding, it is about planning so that every procurement entity puts it into consideration that we shall consider these Ugandans and these are the priorities that we want. Right, Honorable Chair. In 22.2, it reads the bid shall be taken responsive to local content under this act where upon evaluation it contains a local content plan as required in section 18. Where we're saying that everyone should take local content as a process. And this is what other countries are doing, by the way. Only that for them they have no law, but they have policies that help them to ensure that their people are part of the process in terms of their procurements. And it is across, right, Honorable Chair.
Attorney General, help us move.
Madam Chair, I want to move that clause 22.2.
21, where there is cross-referencing to the PPDA Act first.
I concede to that.
Thank you. 22.2.
22.2.
I put a question that clause 21 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay.
Aye.
Let's have it. 22.2.
22.2, Madam Chair, does not state the correct position of the Attorney General in as far as signing and execution of his powers are concerned.
No.
Madam Chair, I think the Attorney General should we you know, when the bidding process is going on, at preliminary stages,
let's first understand what 22.2 says. 22.2 is saying a bid shall be taken to be responsive to local content under this act, where upon evaluation it contains the local content plan as required in section 18. That's what it is saying. Now the problem is saying, the president is saying that 22.2, the provision is in conflict with Article 119 of the Constitution that mandates the Attorney General to give his opinion or advice in respect to all the contracts, agreements, treaties, conventions, or any document which government is a party to.
Madam Chair, Article 119 is about contracts. Here we are at the bidding stage, 22.2. At the bidding stage, even they've not evaluated. We are at the bidding stage and we are saying, as you look for bid security.
Honorable Shabe,
yes, Chair.
Delete 22.2. It conflicts with the Constitution.
Madam Chair, allow me explain. The Constitution, Article 119, Madam Chair, is about it comes at the level of the contract. But this one is at the level of the bidding process, Madam Chair. At the beginning, they've not even evaluated the way they evaluate financial ability, the way they evaluate other preliminary things. That's what we are talking about. The responsiveness we are looking at in 22.2 is at that stage, not at what 1.1 is applicable at the end of the contract. PPD has finished the process.
Honorable Shabe, 22.1 evaluation. 22 is on evaluation of local content in bids. 1. A bid subject to local content obligation shall first be evaluated on its responsiveness to local content obligation, and where the bid is not responsive, it shall be rejected without any further evaluation. That is 1. 2. A bid shall be taken to be responsive to local content under this act, where upon evaluation it contains a local content plan as required in section 18, which has already been done in 1. The responsiveness is already done in 1.
Madam Chair,
3. Upon a preliminary evaluation, a bid shall be ranked in the order of preference, with bids containing the highest value of local content assigned a higher mark. Now, under 1, it has passed the responsiveness. Under 1. Then 3, you now do the high ranking. Let's first hear from AG. He has something to say.
Madam Chair, I want to concede to the clause as it is. We maintain it.
Okay. as it is in the bill. I put a question that clause 22.2 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 28.
Yes.
Madam Chair, we have a consequential amendment on clause 25.
Clause 25.
25.
Clause 25, administrative measures for compliance. Clause 25 is amended A, by deleting subclause 1A, and B, in subclause 2A, by substituting for the words Department of Local Content Entity, the word authority. And the justification for this is to allow the PPDA to be the only supervisor that blacklists local content entities that violate the provisions of this Act.
I concede, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 25 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 25 as amended.
I put a question that clause 25 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 28.
28.
Clause 28 is about offenses and penalties. So, clause 28, offenses, penalties. Clause 28 is amended in subclause 2A. In paragraph A, by substituting for the word 5, the word 3, and B, in paragraph B, by substituting for the word 10, the word 7. Justification: to reduce the prison sentence.
Patrick?
I concede, Madam Chair.
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 28 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 28 as amended.
I put a question that clause 28 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 32.
32. Chair.
Clause 32 is about provision of importation of regulated goods and services. The committee recommends that clause 32 is deleted.
I concede, Madam Chair.
AJ?
That is our position, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 32 be deleted as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 37.
Chair.
Madam Chair, we have another consequential amendment to clause 34, National Supplier Database for Ugandan Entities and Citizens. Clause 34 is amended by substituting for the word department, the word authority, and the justification for this is to provide for the PPDA authority to be the supervisory body responsible for developing and maintaining the local content national database. This is a consequential amendment to the proposal by the President to have PPDA as the only agency that can blacklist.
Yes.
I concede, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 34 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say on the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 34 as amended.
I put a question that clause 34 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 37.
37. Chair. Do you have an amendment on 37?
No, we
38?
We don't have amendment on 38.
38?
Oh, 37. I'm sorry. 37 Clause 37 is about prohibition of imposition of foreign standards. Clause 37 is substituted with the following. For the purpose of this Act, a local content entity, contractor or supplier shall comply with the standards issued by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards in providing goods, services, or material for public works. And 2, where there is no standard issued by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, or where an international standard is superior to a standard issued by UNBS, a local content entity, contractor, provider, or supplier shall, with the approval of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, use the international standard. And justification for this, to compel a local content entity, contractor, provider, or supplier comply with the standards set by UNBS. 2, to provide for use of international standards where there are none issued or where the international standards are superior to those issued by UNBS.
Patrick?
I concede, Madam Chair.
Reggie?
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 37 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 37 as amended.
I put a question that clause 37 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 38.
38.
Clause 38 is about appeals. Regarding appeals, Clause 38 provides for an appeal from decisions made under the Act. Now, here the President proposes that the clause is cross-referenced with the PPDA Act and regulation. The provisions have given the Department the first line of reference for any complaint for violation of the local content law, and where the complainant is dissatisfied with the decision of the Department, then they would have recourse to court. The committee, the reference to court following dissatisfaction with the decision does not in any way hinder the Department from carrying out the process they want to follow while determining these complaints. The Department is at liberty to adapt the processes similar to those in the PPD Act and regulations. In the event that they desire to have it had in the law, then the processes would be contained in the regulation. The committee therefore recommends that Clause 38 regarding appeals be maintained as currently reflected in the Act.
Yes,
Madam Chair, our position is that there is a procedure in the PPD Act for appeals. For whoever is dissatisfied, there is a tribunal. And if you are dissatisfied with the decision of the tribunal, then you appeal to court. Now, for us to make a law on local content, providing for direct appeal to court creates a contradiction. That's why the President proposes that this clause be cross-referenced, meaning that with reference to the PPDA, whoever is dissatisfied here can take the footsteps marked in the PPDA law.
Patrick?
Madam Chair, I associate myself with the committee position because, like I said, local content law is really not about procurement alone. I'll give an example. We have provided for a succession plan. I'm an employee. I've had this expert who has been with us for 10 years, and I want to make an appeal about it. I can't go to PPDA. So matters of local content are not specific on procurement. The procurement process will handle matters of procurement, and we are happy. It will have no problem. But where matters, we are saying they should go to High Court. So, Madam Chair, I plead that PPDA can only handle matters relating to specific to procurement. Beyond procurement, it will not be able to handle. That's why we are referring to the High Court. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assuming you said where they shall, you put may. Because they are not basically for procurement alone, you can decide to go to PPD and or go to High Court. Assuming you remove shall and put may.
Then it reads the local content entity contractor aggrieved by a decision of the department may appeal the decision to the High Court. I have no problem with that.
Hello?
Chair, I fail to understand the contention by the Land Attorney General over the subject matter. And I thought if the honourable member concedes to the coaching of the phrase, then I am comfortable.
The cross-referencing by...
Madam Chair, I don't want to appear to be very difficult on this. But you see, the PPDA law says if you are dissatisfied with the process, you appeal to the tribunal. And if you are dissatisfied with the decision of the tribunal, appeal to the High Court.
What we are saying,
yes,
if it is not all disagreements are on procurement, that's what I think
so
you are saying.
Unless maybe the coaching, you see, that's why the president was proposing that we refer to the PPDA. So unless if we redraft it to say to indicate that you are dealing with activities other than procurement.
That's why we are bringing
we can be specific and say if you are dealing with, if you are dissatisfied with other processes other than procurement, so that we leave the processes of procurement to be handled under the PPDA law.
I think that's a better way to
You
to look
redraft.
at it.
You redraft.
You can redraft it, Madam Chair.
No, we are closing.
No,
This is the last.
no. The House can give the high headlines, and the draftsperson goes to make the impression of the House, because
Okay,
we
give
can
us the
easily
headline.
no, we sustain the headline as implied with by the committee chairperson, because definitely I agree that the PPDA might deal with procurement alone, but the issues therein could be beyond procedure, impropriety, and illegality. They could be bordering on fraud and other issues. So the people who are drafting should take care of those possibilities and then give us something better. I'm not good at drafting verbatim. I need a lot of time. I never did a lot of drafting, but I comprehend when they are properly structured.
Madam Chair, my senior colleague Lopez has talked of fraud, which, if we followed, would open the Pandora's box on this, because then one would have to determine at which level fraud was committed. If it was in the process of procurement, then you go under the PPDA. But for purposes of us moving forward, I would humbly request that the draftsperson can rephrase this. After all, we have agreed that the intention is that we have a proviso that any matter in here that does not deal with procurement can be dealt with directly High Court.
I put a question that clause 38 be amended as proposed by the AG, amended by the Attorney General, by LOB, and further amended by Honorable Shabi. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 38 as amended.
I put a question that clause. Is it on 38?
Yes, I've received a proposed draft. Maybe I can take you through. I can read it for the House.
You read it.
Okay. Subject to the PPDA Act 2003, a local content entity, contractor, provider, or supplier aggrieved by a decision of the department may appeal the decision to the High Court within 14 days from the date of the decision.
That's okay.
I concede, Madam Chair.
That's fine. I put a question that clause 38 be amended as proposed by the Attorney General. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 38 as amended.
I put a question that clause 38 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 39.
39.
Clause 39 is about supremacy of this law. The clause provides for the supremacy of the Act over other legislation on local content. The committee observed that there are rules of statutory interpretation. One of the rules is that specific law prevails over a general law. So this is a specific law. And later laws prevails over the earlier law. Therefore follows without question that on matters of local content, where there is no specific law for a particular sector, then this law will apply. The committee therefore recommends that clause 39 is deleted.
I concede, Madam Chair.
AJ?
I concede, Madam Chair.
I put a question that clause 39 be deleted as proposed. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 10.
Clause 10. We stood over clause 10.
Madam Chair, I was explaining the intention.
You're on 10, eh?
Yes, on 10. The intention of 10, the way it is, was intended to cure two mischiefs. One, with the subcontractors. They have given you a subcontract under affirmative action. We wish that you do this work, you don't sell it off. You don't appear as a middleman. Because we are worried that these people, good people of ours, might get the contracts and give them to Chinese. Might get the contracts and give them to Kenyans. Then it will defeat our purpose. Because it's not only about money, it's also about them building capacity. So it has two legs. One, for those that get contracts under subcontracting, but there are also those that get contracts under reservation, where the contract is theirs. So that's why I'm praying.
AG, Madam Chair, Honorable Oshabe has a point. Concede.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, we concede.
The way it was. I put a question that clause 10 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Motion for resumption of the House.
Honorable Oshabe.
Madam Chair, the Committee of the Whole House has considered the local content bill.
Can you move?
Madam Chair, I move that the report, the committee, the House do resume. Sorry.
And the report of the whole House.
And the Committee of the Whole House report there too. Thank you.
I put a question that the House does resume and the Committee of the Whole House reports there too. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable members, our work in this house is to make laws. Where you feel that what we have passed today was not sufficient or does not address what we want, bring amendment tomorrow. Don't worry, we are here to stay. Let's go on. Switch on.
Madam Chair, I beg to report that the House has considered the Local Content Bill 2022 and passed it
as returned
and passed it with amendments. Thank you.
Motion for adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the committee,
the House
adopts the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Thank you. My clerks, you need to support members. Don't leave my members too. I put a question that the House adopts the report of the Committee of the Whole House. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Bill's third reading, the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President.
Honorable Oshabe.
Madam Chair, I don't know whether it is at this stage, but I desire that to recommit clause 4.
Both of you have a recommittal and have not allowed it. You will bring it as an amendment. Let me first go by what was returned.
Madam Chair, we've made a mistake to turn ourselves into the East African Parliament by passing that clause 4.
We will correct that mistake in the next one. We'll make correction. Hey, you're still on the floor.
Bill's third reading, the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the committee, the House has considered the bill titled the National Local Content Bill 2022 and has passed.
Start.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the House,
that the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President be read the third time and do pass.
Chair, I beg to move that the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by the President be read the third time and do pass.
I put a question that the National Local Content Bill 2022 as returned by His Excellency the President be read the third time and do pass. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act titled the National Local Content Act 2023.
The title settled and bill passed. Thank you so much, the private member, Honorable Shabe, for finally having this bill passed.
Madam Chair, I want to thank you for the endless efforts that you've done on passing this bill. Thank you so much. Even when I was thrown off balance, at one stage, you allowed me return. Thank you. Right Honorable Chair, I want to thank the chairperson of the Committee of Finance and the members of the committee who gave their effort to review this bill as returned. Thank you very much, Chair. The Attorney General, thank you very much. And thank you very much, the House, except Honorable Enos, who has disorganized the intention
of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And thank you for passing this very important bill, AG.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to start by thanking the LOP. He met with us during our harmonization, and he helped us smoothen the process, and his presence here and his guidance was very welcome. I want to thank the mover of this motion, of this bill, who happens to be a personal friend, but a very hard man. Nsamba, I thank you. You will go down in the records of history passing this bill. Not many people are able to push a bill through Parliament when they come to Parliament, although it's a dream of everybody when they come here. Right Honourable Speaker, allow me to say a special thank you to you. Like you intimated, you were feeling unwell, but we pushed you through this. I do understand that you have to be patient to see us through, but I thank you. I thank the House for allowing us to deliberate. It's normal for us to disagree. That's why we are here, to have different opinions. But the ultimate goal is that we are legislating for the good of our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for all your guidance through all this process. I also like to thank the House who have helped to shape it and finally pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to work on this closely with the move of the bill, but as the Attorney General said, I think at times was a bit of a hard man. It was a bit hard. But most importantly, I'm rising up to thank the members of the Committee on Finance, who worked very, very hard and within very tight deadlines to make sure that this bill is passed in time. And thanks for all the Leader of Opposition and all colleagues who turned up for the harmonization meeting. That has helped the process to be smoother than it would otherwise have been. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Chairman and the committee, the mover and the whole House. At times you need to use stick and carrot. Where we have used stick, our apologies. But honourable members, next item, Lob.
Right Honourable Speaker, thank you. Two things from me. One, to congratulate my member for moving the bill successfully through the House. But two, to remind the House that we have been mulling over a committee for post-legislative scrutiny. And it's these kind of bills that remind us of the need to have a committee to deal with post-legislative scrutiny, to understand the working of some of these bills that we pass. Because it doesn't make sense for us to make laws that will not work. Probably the amendments that would come, this would be one such bill we need to follow up very closely and find out the efficacy of each of the clauses we have moved. And therefore, I want to remind you, Right Honourable Speaker, that probably you may want to task the Committee on Rules to consider the task for this committee, and probably in the financial coming. We regard this as very critical. The lawyers in this House will agree with me that it's a huge gap that we don't have that committee, and that's why we are back and forth. We refer, we cross-reference, then we talk about conflict of laws and so forth. Right Honourable Speaker, it's a matter so dear to me, and I would like to see that in this our House. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do that. And as already said, I want to thank you people and thank Attorney General's Chambers. But we also want to remind Attorney General's Chambers that when we send our bills for scrutiny, they should be able to come back immediately. They should not come and stay there for all the time, because we have 5 bills up to now. They've not returned them from Attorney General's chambers. We need them back so that we are able to send them for assent. Next item.
Motion for adoption of sub-regional oversight reports on the parish development model.
Honorable members, as you are aware, the parish development model is one of the government strategies for organizing and delivering public and private sector intervention for wealth creation. We went on recess and got reports from our members, from the constituencies, and we had a meeting with the president who re-echoed his commitment to support this project. But we have our own reports that we got from our constituencies on how the PDM is performing. That is, if it is there. So can we have reports from different sub-regions? Then we'll debate on those reports that have been presented on the House.
Acholi sub-region.
Acholi.
Ankole sub-region.
Ankole. Government Chief Whip. These are your sub-regions.
Buganda sub-region.
Which sub-region is ready? Lango.
Okay. Lango sub-region.
Can we start with the Lango? Can we start with the Lango? Actually, clap for Lango. Can we hear from Lango sub-regional reports? The report that I gave to the president came from Lango. And Lango really had a very good report.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the Lango sub-region report on the parish development model by Lango Parliamentary Group. I beg to lay.
Please.
Right Honorable Speaker, Lango sub-region has...
Honorable members, take note of what is being submitted so that will form the debate.
Right Honorable Speaker, Lango sub-region has 9 districts and 1 city, namely Kole, Doholo, Apache, Oyam, Kwania, Aleptong, Amolata, Otuhe, and Lira district, and Lira city, comprising 21 constituencies. Our terms of reference were 1, to determine the exact amount of approved funds that have been disbursed to the various parishes. Secondly, to examine the eligibility of the various categories of beneficiaries of the PDM funds. Thirdly, to assess the effectiveness of utilization of disbursed funds by PDM beneficiaries. Fourth, to establish the extent of adherence to the PDM guidelines and procedures by the various actors in the implementation of PDM. And lastly, to examine any other matters incidental and make recommendations for corrective action. Our methodology involved meetings with district officials and PDM focal persons, meetings with PDM circle leaders, meetings with selected circles, and review of PDM district reports and documentation. I now present the findings, observations, and recommendations. The report is already uploaded on the iPad under the Northern Region reports. On the first terms of reference, to determine the exact amount of approved funds that have been disbursed to various parishes, Lango sub-region registered 597 parish circles and 9,771 enterprise groups. In the financial year 2021-2022, government committed to disbursing 17 million shillings to each of the parish circles. Out of the 576 parish circles in Lango sub-region, only 175 circles received the full amount, equivalent to 29%. 277 circles received less, while 145 circles did not receive any funds. total funds disbursed in financial year 2021-2022 was 5.1 billion out of the expected 10.1 billion, representing 50% of planned disbursements. In financial year 2022-2023, 100 million was to be disbursed to each of the parish circles, with 50 million disbursed in quarter 1 and another 50 million in quarter 3. 582 circles received 25 million shillings out of the 597 circles, equivalent to 97%. 47% of the planned funds, totaling to 14 billion shillings, were received by the circles. In total, 19.1 billion has been disbursed to parish circles in Laos sub-region. Annexure 1 and 2 provide details of the funds disbursed and the status of receipt of the funds at the circle level. Our observations are that only 29% of the parish circles received the 17 million shillings in 2021-2022, and these arrears have not been paid to date, while also 25% of the circles did not receive any money. Secondly, in financial year 2022-2023, 97% of the circles received the 25 million shillings in their accounts. 15 circles did not receive due to errors in their account numbers and names, while some were not recognized by Ministry of Finance as parishes. The amount received equates to 50% of the expected 50 million shillings per circle that should have been released before the start of the first rainy season. Failure by MOFED to release funds in line with the commitments given during the sensitization process that was led by Cabinet at the start of the financial year has created mistrust on by the population about the PDM program and their leaders. This has made a number of MPs to withdraw from active participation of the program, with the fear of non-implementation of some of the PDM talking points that were provided to them from the PDM Secretariat under the Ministry of Local Government. In financial year 2021-2022, disbursement of funds from the district to the circles for the revolving funds were variedly implemented. Some districts equally distributed the funds across the parishes, while others chose to disburse Uganda shilling 17 million per circle, which resulted in some circles failing to receive any funds. Our recommendations are that 1, the parish circles that have not received funds for financial year 22-2023 due to discrepancies in the account names and account numbers, which have been addressed, should have their funds disbursed in a timely manner before the end of this financial year. Secondly, arrears from financial year 2021-2022 and the outstanding 2022-2023 payments should be made before end of this financial year to the respective circles. Thirdly, the PDM talking notes dated June 2022 needs to be revised and updated to provide accurate information that is harmonized with Ministry of Finance and other PDM actors to avoid variations in communication. And lastly, instructions to districts should be harmonized to ensure uniform implementation across the board. On the second terms of reference, to examine the eligibility of the various categories of beneficiaries of the PDM funds, the objective of PDM is to enable households increase agricultural production and productivity, to add value to the produce through improved post-harvest handling, storage, processing, and marketing. It also seeks to provide a revolving fund that farmers can borrow from at affordable rates and appropriate repayment period, and invest in their economic enterprises. PDM targets 39% of households which are still in subsistence farming. Majority of these households own less than 4 acres of land. Persons under this category are encouraged to focus on intensive farming, specifically looking at livestock farming such as piggery, poultry, fish farming, fruit farming, horticulture, coffee, among other designated enterprise. Each household, which comprises of the head of the family, the spouse, the children, and the dependents, is allowed to borrow up to a maximum of 1 million Uganda shillings, payable over a maximum period of 36 months at 6% interest. And the funding quotas per interest group have also been set out at 30% for women, 30% for youth, 10% for people with disabilities, 10% for the elderly, and others 20%. PDM circles are required to be registered with the district, while the enterprise groups are required to be registered with the sub-counties and town councils. Observations. Whereas PDM targets households that are within the subsistence economy, there is no clear data that shows that the enterprise groups selected fall within the stipulated category. This has majorly been attributed to the fact that the groups were formed before the data collection was concluded. In addition, the parish chiefs have not been facilitated with the needed gadgets in order to ensure adequate capture of relevant data. Secondly, a sizable number of enterprise groups have taken up cereal, specifically maize growing, yet this was discouraged for persons with less than 4 acres of land. The average land holding in Lango is 2.5 acres. With poor enterprise selection being cited as one of the reasons for subsistence farming, there are concerns that the groups selecting maize farming or inappropriate enterprises may not be positively impacted by the PDM. A number of SACCOs have already set their borrowing threshold, with some at 300,000 Uganda shillings that can be borrowed. The enterprises being focused on are not only labor intensive, but at the same time capital intensive. There are concerns that the enterprise groups or households may not be able to adequately capitalize some of the capital-intensive enterprises such as fish farming, poultry rearing, dairy farming, due to the low Ministry of Finance releases, and in the end may fail to repay their loans. The percentages of the enterprise groups are not adequately aligned with the funding quotas, with some SACCOs having low numbers of certain special interest groups. For example, whereas the elderly are to get 10% of the quotas, in some parishes it was noted that their participation was very low and at times even non-existent. This creates a challenge in terms of compliance to the guidelines, as it will imply that a portion of the funds may remain unutilized or has to be reallocated. Registration of new enterprise groups is currently not ongoing, and hence leaving out a number of potential and interested households. Our recommendation is that the mapping of the existing registered enterprise groups against the number within the 39% subsistence needs to be done and completed to establish the number of beneficiaries to be targeted. Secondly, enterprise groups that have selected enterprises such as maize farming or those that may not be financially feasible with a low capital availability need to be advised or allowed to change to other enterprises. Thirdly, there is need for the enterprises to be guided on the minimum investment needed, with appropriate business plans aligned to planned amounts to be borrowed, in order for their enterprises to be adequately capitalized and avoid risks of underfunding of their enterprises, which may result in failure to repay the amounts borrowed. Provision needs to be made for reallocation of funds in cases where the funding quota has not been utilized by one of the categories of the interest groups. Options for investment as groups also need to be provided, and a threshold for group borrowing put in place to cater for individuals that would like to invest as a group. And guidance needs to be given on when other groups that did not participate in the first cycle will be allowed to register in order to ensure their inclusivity. On the third terms of reference, to assess effectiveness of utilization of disbursed funds by PDM beneficiaries, across the parish SACCOs in the sub-region, none of the SACCOs have had the funds disbursed to the enterprise groups. The SACCOs are duly registered with the Registrar of Cooperatives, general meetings have been held, leaders selected, bank accounts have been opened, and signatories made. The board committees, the supervising committees, and loan committees were found to be in place. The districts are at stage 4 of preparing the beneficiaries to access the PDM funds, which is being done through a pilot. Piloting processes are currently ongoing within selected parish SACCOs in the various districts in order to train the leaders on financial management, profiling of the beneficiary households, development of business plans and work plans by the beneficiaries for the enterprises chosen with the help of extension workers, training on loan application and repayment procedures. The pilot is expected to be completed by end of February to enable rollout by 1st March. A number of SACCOs indicated that they had earlier been informed that the rollout will take place on 1st December 2022, which did not materialize. Our observation is that the delay in allowing SACCOs to disburse the funds, coupled with the changing dates for rollout, has resulted in loss of confidence on the program. Planned rollout in March might be too late for those planning to plant various crops in this rainy season. Some of the districts are ready for the pilot, but have not received the necessary support from the relevant entities, including Ministry of ICT, to enable them proceed with their pilot. Our recommendations are that the pilot processes need to be finalized in a timely manner to enable rollout before the commencement of the rainy season. Secondly, PDM communication needs to be harmonized to avoid loss of confidence coming out of several postponements on the rollout. On the second last terms of reference, to establish the extent of adherence to the PDM guidelines and procedures by the various actors in the implementation of PDM, the SACCOs were found to be registered with the Registrar of Companies. The vetting committees were formed, followed by election of board committees and supervising committees and loan committees. The SACCOs then received introductory letters from their districts to open bank accounts and register with Ministry of Finance, IFMIS system. These processes and guidelines were found to have been complied with. Several trainings are yet to be completed to the SACCO leaders on financial management and households on enterprise value chain. Profiling of the beneficiaries who should be members of an enterprise group, which in turn should be a member of a parish SACCO, is ongoing. Beneficiaries are yet to form work plans with the help of extension workers using the budgets for agricultural extension services. It was noted that several budgets were repurposed from the original budgets through instructions that came from Ministry of Finance in financial year 2021-2022. For example, in Kole district, 50% of the Uganda shillings 52 million administrative cost budget received for sensitization of district and sub-county stakeholders was repurposed for data collection, while Uganda shillings 58.9 million released for management information system was repurposed for the revolving fund. These instructions were to be applied across all districts. The district and sub-county monitoring teams, which are supposed to monitor and provide reports to the respective local governments and district local government councils, are not fully functionalized across the different districts. Our observations are that there are new processes and guidelines, including pilots, which have emerged from various PDM implementers and subsequently delaying the disbursement processes. The SACCO leaders engaged were not aware about some of the guidelines and procedures, especially on the pilots, the work plan development, and were getting to know for the first time. Repurposing of the released funds hampered the sensitization process, limiting engagement with the different stakeholders and contributing to some of the misconceptions and misinterpretations on the parish development model. It further resulted in low coverage on data collections, since the parish chiefs could not be facilitated with computers and gadgets to enable adequate management information systems to be in place. Lack of monitoring at the district lower local government level makes it difficult to assess the progress at the implementation stage. Our recommendations are that the processes and guidelines from the different implementers need to be put into one document to enable the parish SACCOs and the district leaders to be aware of them in advance. Secondly, Ministry of Finance should streamline the funding mechanisms to avoid last-minute repurposing of released funds, as it impacts the implementation of other segments which have a bearing on the success of the PDM implementation. And the district and lower local government monitoring teams for PDM need to be fully functionalized. On the last terms of reference, to examine any other matters incidental and make recommendations for corrective action. During engagements with the various PDM SACCOs, they indicated lack of clarity on how administrative costs will be catered for. Some indicated that they had been told that 5,000 Uganda shillings would be charged for each application form for a loan, and this will help to cater for the administrative costs. They indicated having been called several times for trainings and traveling to the banks using their own means. Household data collection coverage was still incomplete, and this will impact access to the funds by the households. Lack of computers for the parish chiefs has further hindered the process of data collection. A lot of contradicting information and mixed directives coming to the PDM SACCOs and the district officials from the PDM Secretariat, Ministry of Finance, UBOS, and other ministries was highlighted, creating confusion on implementation of some of the PDM provisions. Other pillars of PDM, such as infrastructure and economic services, social services, community mobilization, and mindset change, agricultural value chain development, have not been adequately resourced. Budgets for sub-counties and town councils were reduced in financial year 2022-2023 and directed towards PDM. Some sub-counties are now running reduced budgets with less than half of the previous financial year budget. Main budget reductions were under the district discretionary equalization grants, that are being used to address some of the most pressing service delivery needs at the sub-county levels, including roads, planting materials, among others. These services have been dropped at the sub-county and town council level and still remain unavailable at the parish level. Concerns have also been raised on the limited private sector players' involvement, which could play a big role in value chain enhancement, have not been integrated within the program. Their role could be useful in providing guidance on quality, markets, and breeds of varieties. Our observations are that lack of a clear budget to cater for the administrative costs has resulted into several SACCOs coming up with charges or fundraising initiatives to address the administrative requirements for stationery, stamps, transport, office space, amongst others. On the part of the districts, a number of officials have had to use their own funds. Secondly, mixed directives has resulted in varying communication and interpretation on the various aspects of the PDM. Apart from the financial inclusion pillar, mainly driven through the revolving fund, the other pillars are either non-functional or not fully functionalized. PDM budgets were generated through repurposing of budgets from wealth creation initiatives, DDEG funds from districts, sub-counties, and town councils. Some of these funds were used for road maintenance, but are now no longer available. In effect, road maintenance funds for the lower local government roads have reduced. Recommendations. Clear guidelines on how operational costs at the district and the parish SACCO shall be catered for should be prescribed. A tool for monitoring and evaluating PDM at the parish, district, and country level needs to be developed and distributed. Private sector needs to be involved from the planning to the execution stage. The guidelines need to be continuously updated to provide for, among others, the roles of each ministry, district department, and officials at each stage. The focus on other pillars, most especially community mobilization and mindset change, need to be improved in order to attain the objectives of PDM. Funding for the infrastructure pillar, especially roads, need to be made in the financial year 2023-2024 by implementing Parliament's recommendation on the budget framework paper to have each district receive a minimum of 1 billion shillings for road maintenance. Our conclusion is that from the field visits and meetings, it is clear that there are still a lot of gray areas, both in the policy framework and the implementation arrangements of PDM. This has been compounded further with a large number of stakeholders involved, cutting across different ministries and agencies. Limited funding and low releases has also presented a number of challenges in implementation, with a number of budgets being repurposed for PDM. Ministry of Finance needs to streamline the funding mechanism to avoid disruption of other services through repurposing of funds from other budgets. I beg to submit, and the report is signed by 17 members of parliament from Laon sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Pio, for that very good report. And I wish you could all borrow from what has been presented and refine your reports. We'll continue with the rest of the reports tomorrow. The whole of tomorrow we are only on PDM. We must get a solution for PDM and help government. I adjourn the house to 2 tomorrow.
UBC, inspiring Uganda. UBC,